instead of outdoors and summers. But any questions from last week's presentation by Dr. Marylander about the impacts of growth in California on water supplies, the things she was talking about, and how the type of development is going to impact the effects on water resources. She had put up those maps about these exurban growth is going to have a much larger impact than infill, let's say infill growth, because it's taking away a lot of other ecosystem services.
I have a question. In earth science, we learned that the dirtier the air, like from farming or something like that, more dust in the air, the more rainfall we get. Is that true in your sense? Do you? So maybe the more smog we have, the more population.
It's more related towards the specific sources of particulates aren't real clear, but it is well known that particulates serve as a nucleus for water droplets.
So do you think there's a possibility with population growth we might have more rainfall, or we're not seeing that so much, so are we?
Question answered. I'm really good at giving that answer to it. It's not known.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get started. Our speaker today is Aaron Majors. Aaron Majors is the owner and construction department manager at Cagwin Dorward. Cagwin Dorward is a landscape design contractor. What do you design? Do they design? So a build, maintenance, landscape services company out of Novato, California. He leads his team to build estate, commercial, and public projects throughout Northern California since 2003. He has a BS degree in ornamental horticulture from Cal Poly SLO in 1996. He's a landscape industry certified manager and technician. Yes, I got my degree there. He places a high priority on developing his team with leadership and industry training. Throughout his career, he has overseen the sales and development of project management of over $50 million in landscape construction projects. Notable projects include the renovation of Sunset Publishing's gardens in Menlo Park, award-winning estates in Napa, and a honeybee haven garden here at UC Davis. He believes successful projects are built on collaborative relationships and through balancing budget, craftsmanship, and schedule. Bay-friendly and other sustainable landscape specs have been a new venture for him, and a part of Cagwin Dorward's transition to becoming part of the solution. Aaron has a passion for building landscapes by creating an enjoyable customer experience. I mentioned this bay-friendly principles, and I just handed out, I know some of you haven't gotten this, you came a little late, but this book is an adaptation of the bay-friendly landscape guidelines. Bay-friendly landscape guidelines is a project that was originated out of Alameda County, stopwaste.org. Now it's a Bay Area coalition, and projects, all the landscape projects are encouraged to follow these principles. This document was adapted for the Central Valley, and that's why it's called Riverfront. Okay, Aaron.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, I forgot, I'm sorry. I have to make a comment about the power of social media.
Uh-oh.
We found it today on Facebook that today is your birthday.
Okay. You found it?
Somebody found out and told me.
Thanks. So, fun way to spend my birthday. Yeah. He gets to take me out to lunch. So you covered my first 3 slides about me. So
okay.
No, I'm just kidding. But I can tell you a little bit more about me. I'm passionate about technology, software, and social media. I speak to other groups that are probably a little less aware of social media. I would assume that college students probably know a little bit about it. It's funny to sit and talk to a group of people and they say, I've heard of that Twitter thing. You know, so I like to put it out there to people and try to encourage more people of my generation and my peers to use it, because I think it can improve how we communicate. As Lauren said, Cagwin Dorward is a full-service landscape contractor. We do landscape maintenance, construction, tree care, erosion control, water management. We do that for commercial, municipal, and residential customers throughout the Bay Area. We have 13 locations servicing most of Northern California. And we serve our customers in a customer-centric way. So a little bit about what I like to focus on in construction, and that's creating a successful landscape experience. In order for us to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace as contractors, we need to do something different. And as a company, we've chosen to be customer-centric and focus on the value we can provide our customers, value over price. So we created this graphic, and we created some principles that we like to follow and we like to train our people with that I think help serve our customers. And that's balancing budget or costs, the craftsmanship, and schedule, and all of that built on a relationship. So, you know, the relationship's built by listening and building personal connections, building trust and personal connections. Schedule, we like to be flexible and adaptable with deadlines for our project. Craftsmanship, quality meets expectations. And the budget, costs are complete and aligned with goals. So following those principles, we find that it's a balance of those things. And you'll find that schedule, craftsmanship, budget is actually built on another theory of project management triangle. And that it's a balance of those three that creates a successful project. So today I'll talk about some case studies, 3 projects, 2 of which I was heavily involved in. One, I'll give you an overview and share a little bit about what I know. We'll talk about return on investment, how you can pay for landscape renovations, water use reduction, through water use reductions and maintenance cost reductions. We'll talk about some sustainable solutions in design and construction with soil management and development, fertigation, organic installation and maintenance. And we'll talk about the collaborative relationship that can be created with architects and contractors. So the first project is Drake's Landing. It's the first Bay-friendly certified project, commercial certified project in Marin County. The owner is Equity Office Properties, who is the largest owner property management company in the country of commercial office property. And the project's in Larkspur, right on the bay. If you know the Larkspur area, as you go over the 101 freeway heading north, it's on the left in that lagoon area. The landscape designer is Susie Dodd-Markarian. It was built in November 2009. So it had over 2 acres of lawn that were sheet mulched and replaced with low water use plants. 75% of the plant palette that we used was a low water use plants that went back in. No new turf, and all the shrubs were converted to drip irrigation. So a typical commercial landscape. Behind the photographer there is the bay, and we'll see a few pictures of that. But large expanses of turf in a commercial office setting, which in my opinion is fairly useless. Very aesthetic, but not very useful. It happens to be along a walking path that's adjacent to a lot of homeowners associations. So a lot of people travel by here, and this gets a lot of use on a weekend. But it's, the owner is the office building owner and the tenants that utilize the property. So we did sheet mulching, and I want to go through the steps of sheet mulching because I think it's fairly new to the industry. Who's familiar with sheet mulching and knows that process? Anyone? No? So I'll go through the steps for that. It's very simple. It's labor intensive, but I think the benefits far outweigh the costs. So the process, the first step is simply shutting water off to the lawn. And back up, the value of doing sheet mulching over the traditional method, which on a lawn like this may be to sod cut and off-haul all that material, would be to spray it with herbicide and sod cut and offall, or spray it out with herbicide and till it all under. So the value of doing the sheet mulching is that there's a whole life that lives in that lawn and in that soil below there of soil biology. And by hauling all that off, you're losing those valuable organisms that are going to help build your soil in the future. So that's why we want to shift towards doing sheet mulching with turf areas. So you can see the first step the guys did here. They just sod cut the perimeter. So you have to think about the profile of material that's going to come in here, and the fact that the perimeter is already at grade. And so unless you get that edge down to fill that new profile of compost, cardboard, and mulch, you're going to have all that material built up on the edge, and it's going to be off in your sidewalks and your hardscape areas. So a significant portion of work is the first step was sod cutting, but it's really excavating that down and pulling all that material up and just kind of throwing it up in the landscape. So here's some of the next steps. This is the same area. The guys have got the edges excavated down. They're rolling out a layer of cardboard and they're spreading compost, 3 inches of compost on top of that cardboard. So it's that simple, it's those steps. It's recycled cardboard. We buy it in large rolls, and it's organic compost that we're using. This large turf area.
You're putting it on top of the existing lawn?
Yeah. So this large turf area was actually originally specified to be Carex Panzai, and part of the bay-friendly process for scoring was to create habitat. And so we worked with the landscape designer to substitute for wildflowers. And so we created this wildflower mix and hydroseeded it, actually right on top of compost, which was a little bit of a concern of mine that it would actually grow in that compost. But it was finished compost. It was not as hot as some new compost you get, so it grew great in it actually. Another area that was sheet mulched, but being just planted and drip irrigated, so you can see the guys working with planting and running drip to each of the plants. A little bit about the savings. So water quality protection practices, by not spraying and doing the traditional demolition method, we saved about 1.5 pounds of glyphosate, Roundup, from going into the landscape and into, I mean, right behind those guys is the bay. And Lauren will be happy to tell you where that glyphosate would be very quickly from runoff. So that was saved. 175,000 pounds of grass that would have been hauled to a landfill. And the plans long-term are, and we are doing now, integrated pest management. So there's a minimal chemical usage. And from a water quality protection, we also didn't add any new hardscape surfaces. So on the water use side, this chart's a little confusing. I actually stole somebody else's chart, but MA was the maximum allowable water allowance, maximum applied water allowance. And prior to the renovation, it was calculated at 2.6 million gallons. Skip over the estimated prior to, because I don't even understand that myself. The actual total water used before the renovation was 2.5 million gallons. So it was using basically around where it was calculated for based on. This is all based on the WELO water calculations. So after the renovation, it was estimated to use about 2 million. So that's based on the new plant material. It should have been using about 2 million. And the actual water use is about 1.2 million. So we saved about 53% of the water on that project. I've got some interesting charts looking at water savings and maintenance cost savings on this project. And we'll talk about later the return on investment. But as the cost of water increases, I don't know about Davis, but I know in the Bay Area it's significant. I know it's insignificant in Sacramento. I think it's 75 cents a unit or something in Sacramento. In this area, Marin Water District is, I would say, one of the leading water districts for water conservation and for their aggressive water conservation practices. They have water police. They were one of the first ones to have a tiered water rate structure. And so if you're up in the tier 3, tier 4, you're in the $12 a unit range for water. So saving 53% of the water on the site very quickly starts to pay for doing landscape renovations. So another shot of the wildflowers and the habitat was created. Did anybody happen to see this in person? No, travel down there. Did you get down there?
Yeah.
That's right, we toured it together.
Right after Easter.
Yeah, over Easter. And that's what I was going to point out. When we were there were literally hundreds of families out there in their Easter clothes shooting their Easter pictures. And it was a rewarding experience for me to see an impact that landscaping can make in a quantifiable way other than water savings or dollar savings, the things that most people want to go to for measurements. And so my measurement was the hundreds of people that I saw that day enjoying the landscape that wouldn't have been doing that on Carrick's Panzai, and they wouldn't have been doing that on the old turf grass lawn. I mean, turf grass is enjoyable, but not like this was. It was an amazing experience. So I like to quantify things other than cost, and I think it's a challenge to try and quantify community and environmental impacts and the rewards you can get from those things. The next project's the Willows Eco Gardens. We've maintained the site for years, I'd say 10 plus years. And it's a small shopping center in Concord. It was designed with UC Davis Arboretum All-Stars plant material. And it was designed with bay-friendly specs, although it wasn't bay-friendly certified. We used compost tea and kelp through the summer months for the plant material. Most of the plant material is native and it had some stress on it. So enhancing the soil food web by using organisms in the compost tea or food for the organisms. Again, what's unique about this project and something that we do differently is collaborating with our customers and other people, creating a successful landscape experience or creating a community event. So in this case, we had a grand opening. We were able to bring in the UC Master Gardeners from Contra Costa County. We partnered with the California Center for Urban Horticulture, and Missy and Dave helped bring the Master Gardeners to the program, as well as getting the Arboretum All-Star spec on the project. And the property manager, Colliers International, was very supportive, and then of course Cagwin Dorward, our ownership group, the operations team for this project, and our sustainability manager were all actively involved in the installation and the grand opening event. So again, what's unique, the differentiator for us was creating this grand opening that supported the community, and the marketing that we got through that, which was a shared cost for us with all these other stakeholders. And so there was a lot of press generated from it, and a lot of the community enjoyed the experience, and that was cost, again, shared amongst the team. So as a company, we're not big on advertising. In fact, we don't advertise at all. And a lot of the press and value we get of marketing is coming doing something like this, speaking at other events, or having these community events and sharing with people the work that we do, not making an investment in the phone book or traditional advertising methods, which usually proven to not be that successful. So the Master Gardeners had a plant sale. That's Missy talking about salvia maybe. But it was a cool event, other than it was 110 degrees, I think, that day, and everybody was melting. It was pretty fun. Another element of the project, out by the freeway, they've created this eco critter farm where they're doing school tours now. There's worm bins out there with earthworms, and they've cycled those earthworms back into the landscape to do some natural tilling of the heavy clay soils. And then there's some beneficial insects in a little cage with lacewings and ladybugs. And they've done releases of those on the property. All of this is focused around doing school tours and generating interest for the community in that area for the shopping center that's there. As well, there's on-site composting, which I'd say is a huge leverage point for all of us that have an influence on design. From the commercial maintenance perspective, other than grass cycling, which we do on all of our projects, most of the other material comes off of the site. And so part of our transition is figuring out customers that are open to doing composting on their site of that material. And the most sustainable way is to retain that material there, compost it, and put it right back into their landscapes. Although there's been limited interest from our customers, I think we're making some progress. And I think you'll see, my vision would be in 10 or 20 years, it's just what everybody does. But right now, it's a little too innovative for some people. So Harbor Bay medians, the best picture I could find was street view. This project is along Harbor Bay Parkway in Alameda. Yeah.
Quick question on the Willows.
Yeah.
How did that project come about? Was it the developer doing the shopping center wanted to do something sustainable, or was there some other incentive?
It was actually generated out of Cagwin Dorward's desire to do a demonstration garden for Arboretum All-Stars and searching for a customer that was open to doing this. They actually paid, our original goal I think was to do a very small renovation. We were actually going to do it at our own cost. And finding this customer, it turned into a much larger renovation. They paid for the whole project. So that's how it came about. So this, and this project's in progress now. So you won't see a lot of finished shots and data on this because it just broke ground in beginning of September and it's kind of rolling full speed right now. But Harbor Bay Parkway starts at the Oakland Airport and runs out to the ferry terminal. All of the private development along here, most of it is owned by Harbor Bay Business Park Association. There's one very large developer that started building out here 15 or 20 years ago. The recognizable landmark, I think, is the Oakland Raiders practice field that's along there. And so this renovation is the median island strip. It's 1.5 miles long, 120,000 square feet, I think. And it's owned by the city of Alameda, but it's a unique relationship, I want to point out, that the Harbor Bay Business Park Association administers the maintenance of this through landscape and lighting district money, property tax money, through those local businesses. And that money siphons through the city of Alameda to the private developer or business park association, and they administer contracts for maintenance and construction. So it's a private project, private money, but, well, I should take that back. It's public money, but somehow it becomes private money because it's going through a private company, and it's on public land. So, City of Alameda is the owner. The landscape architect is April Phillips, Design Works. Is anybody familiar with April Phillips? I don't know who she is, no. Prominent Bay Area landscape architect. The goal is to create a sustainable, water conserving, and habitat enhancing landscape that sets a new eco-friendly image. And here you can see part of the Oakland Raiders practice field. And the work we're doing is only on these islands, which I'm guessing is maybe 25% of the total area. So all of this is common area as well. It's all parkway turf. All along the frontage of here is all common, and it's all turf. I take that back. There's a little bit of shrubs along the fence along the properties here, but almost all turf. And the median islands is all turf, and there are no trees. And it is literally just turf. It's just an interesting landscape. So they knew they wanted to do something different. And so back to the design intent. It was to replace the existing turf with a green, eco-friendly landscape, following the bay-friendly guidelines. The current estimated water usage of just the islands is about 3.6 million gallons. The projected reduction would be down to about 1.2 million gallons of usage in a year, so about 65% reduction in water. In progress, sod cutting. So they went along the perimeter edge into the sod cutting, flopped it up in the street. You can see that's San Francisco in the background. That's the view from this area. So first step in sheet mulching, sod cut, flop that up. Next step is coming along with excavator, mini excavator or backhoe, and scraping that and moving that soil up on top and creating a mound, which you can see a little bit in this picture. So these areas were flat when we started with turf. And so this one looks like it's just graded and a 1-inch layer of compost put on top. This sheet mulching was done a little bit differently. There's a benefit to having a layer of organic cardboard and then another layer of organic compost on top. And they actually paid additional for that on this project. We in the past have done it with just cardboard and then the compost on top of the cardboard. So that picture is just a layer of compost. This is the 1-inch layer of compost, and you can just see here a little bit of cardboard and then another 1-inch layer of compost on top of that, all being mounded up. And that's about where the project is right now in progress. They've got all of the sheet mulching done, and they've just started doing drip irrigation prior to planting. So my chance to advertise, next Wednesday, there's a community event that we created to have a groundbreaking ceremony, learn about Bay Friendly, demonstrate sheet mulching, and meet community members. So we've got the city of Alameda excited about the project, and they're going to have the mayor speak and the head of the planning department. In one of those islands, we'll be able to do sheet mulching so people can see how that process works. And stopwaste.org or Bay Friendly will be out there, East Bay Mud, the Water District will be out there, and it should be an exciting event.
Aaron,
So, yes?
can you give us just maybe a summary of what April's plans are and what she has putting in there?
Yeah, it's actually pretty simple. The concept is a wave, right? It's on the ocean, and so she's got the idea of waves of plant material. The plants are 2 grasses, Stipa, tenuissima, and festuca, I can't remember which one. There are Maitland roses going in. There is a Formium, I don't remember which one. There is Nomo fescue going in, so about 20,000 square feet of this is Nomo fescue.
That vine fescue that looks sort of left meadowy looking?
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
and that's being done on all the left turn lane island tips for view, right? So you won't have any plant material up in the way of the view of those turning areas.
Did you say 25,000 or 2,500?
20,000 square foot of Nomo. And Hemerocallis Stella de Oro, or maybe it might have been Celtic or something. One of the ways this project was sold that I could share with you is that we originally bid this for over $500,000, and the customer came back and said, we'd like to save money. So going through a process of valuing plant material, changed some of the spacing, and changed the sizes of the plants. And we were able to drop the project to about $430,000 just through that process. So little things like, can we plant the grasses at 14 inches on center instead of 12? Saves $5,000 over a mile and a half. So little things like that that you can't really see that will make a benefit to their bottom line cost and allow the project to go forward. So I wanted to ask the question, what does value mean to you? Do they have a definition of what value is to them?
Let's call on somebody. Now we know a couple of people's names in here, so.
Somebody around there, actually.
So What do you think value is? When you're providing a service to somebody, what are they looking for with that?
Yes.
Well, first, return on investment. So like a landscape for a home is 20% of the value of the home.
Okay.
Personally, I think it's an undetermined value because the landscape gives back continuously over year upon year upon year. Especially
Sure.
if there's trees that get really old.
What does it give
And
back?
what does it give back? Anything from relaxation to privacy to,
Sure.
um,
So not quantifiable things. You started with cost.
absolutely true. Yeah,
Right, so
the
cost is some
installation,
percentage.
maybe even maintenance,
Sure.
if you don't do it yourself.
Sure. But what I liked is you moved past cost and you moved on to community and environmental impacts, right? And the benefit that you get from those. And
Right.
those aren't quantifiable.
No, especially if you're planting plants that bees love, or butterflies
Sure.
love, or
Sure.
something else that's gonna create a good environment.
Sure. So there's a quote I like to use. It's price is what you pay, value is what you get. That's from Warren Buffett. And I, in my business and working with customers, I like to live that because as a contractor, what we do, we're not the low price leader. I can guarantee you every time we do a job, you can find somebody who can do the job for a lower price. Playing the low price game is not what we choose to do as contractors. There's a lot of contractors that are successful at doing that, but their business model is different than ours. So, you know, the point with return on investment is that not enough of our work is appreciated for the aesthetic value that it provides or the environmental value. And that trying to find an angle to customers who are focused on price, this is one of those avenues for them. And unfortunately, you'll come across probably more of those in your career until more people shift to the value of environment, right? And they want to actually make a difference in this world. I like to say that current landscaping practices are destroying the world. And Lauren proved that to me when I watched his presentation on what's coming out of our landscapes and what's being put down. It's pretty disturbing. And unfortunately, I work for a company that's a part of that. I'm a part of an industry, I'm a part of practices that use these pesticides and herbicides, and it's built into what we do. And we're trying to change that machine through our decisions. And so I take those decisions seriously and try to make those changes with my people, with the training that we do, and with the customers as well, because a lot of it's being driven by customers who will say, no, I want the cheapest thing, which is spraying, and they're not willing to make an investment in other alternatives. So a little more on ROI. So the cost of water and the cost of maintenance are a major driver for projects. And there's a few different things we found that have provided some value to our customers. One is the installation of smart or ET controllers. Who's familiar with those? One person. So all the landscapes you'll design are going to get irrigation delivered to them through a controller. And the traditional controllers, the ones we all know about, that you set the days of the week and how many start times and how many minutes. Those are as good as whatever information you put in them and how often you change that information. And weather changes on a daily, hourly basis. And what happens with smart controllers is they update the water delivery to the landscape based on what the weather was the day before. And so you get the benefit of micro changes to the delivery of water, which could just be, we're going to water the lawn 1 less minute tomorrow. And over time, huge benefits. So we find that an average landscape will get about a 30% reduction in water simply by installing a smart controller, which ranges in cost from maybe $1,000 to $5,000 depending on what type of controller you're using. So one of the example projects we have is an 8-year-old HOA in Brisbane. As far as I know, Brisbane's got the highest water rates in the state that I found so far. I think they're at about $9.75 for a base unit, and the tiers go up from there. So we installed about $50,000 worth of smart controllers out there, and we're able to reduce their water by over 30% and pay for those controllers in just less than 1 year. So from an investment standpoint, it's a no-brainer. Why not make a short little investment in your capital expenses and reduce your operating expenses and do a good thing for the environment at the same time. A typical landscaping project like Drake's Landing or Harbor Bay, the return on investment is much longer. You're looking at more like a 10-year range. And so if you put on your Wall Street hat and think from an investment standpoint, most investors aren't into 10 years. It's too far for them. It's hard for them to connect with their money sitting out there that long to get it back. So 1 year is much more practical, and I think that's why you're not seeing landscape renovations happening based on these types of principles. So, and then the community environment. I like to drive the value of community environment, try and quantify these things through doing community events for our customers, and shift from price to value with those customers. So education on water, energy, and pollution, connecting the quantifiable changes with the project with less to landfill, reduced water and things, and make an emotional appeal. I often thought it'd be great to quantify community and environmental things where you told people how many polar bears they saved, right? Now you have like an emotional reaction to, I chose to spend my money this way, or as a manager, I chose to spend my company's money this way. And here's what the impact that made. I think it's funny, but it's serious. I think if you could quantify it in a way that people emotionally connect with, you'll make a difference. So, run out of time as usual. Sustainable solutions in design and construction. So, some practical things that we're doing as a company that I think are somewhat unique for the commercial industry. They're not new by any means, but they're unique for a large company to be doing something like this. Soil development and management. So just simply starting with testing for soil biology. Typical specs include doing soil tests for chemical analysis. And the shift now is to test for soil biology. And bacteria, protozoa, nematodes, fungi, mycorrhizal colonization. The living organisms that are in our soil that control diseases on their own, control insects on their own, fix back nitrogen for the plants to grow on their own naturally, and separate us from the synthetic spoon feeding of fertilizer that most traditional landscapes need, as well as pesticides. So that's one change, it's doing soil biology testing. Respecifying projects with organic compost. Most of the projects I see, plans and specs, say naturalized sawdust. So that's the traditional spec for a landscape architect. And naturalized sawdust is not sustainable. It's recycled. I mean, it's a byproduct of the lumber industry. But we are currently buying our organic compost, which is much more local. It's not being trucked from the forestry industry to us. It's being created locally in our own counties. It's cheaper. It's organic, and it is full of soil life that we're trying to regenerate in our landscapes. Promoting sheet mulching in lieu of the old methods. Applying compost tea and biostimulants. So the compost tea has the soil life in it. It's the bacteria, protozoa, and nematodes alive that you put down on the landscape. Add biostimulants and grow the soil life. And organic and pesticide free. So that's usually an education issue. Most customers aren't okay with weeds in their lawn or weeds in the cracks of the sidewalks and things. So we have to educate them that maybe it's okay to have a few weeds and not to be spraying pesticides in the landscape. And that's a challenge to overcome. One way we've found is we can hurt and heal. I learned this from our sustainability manager, and that is to use a pesticide or an herbicide like, say, Roundup, to spray out a weed, because it's got to be done. And number one to that customer is keeping the weeds out, and if we can't do that, they'll find somebody who will. So spray out that weed, and then come back after and spray compost tea which is the next step in healing that soil after we've just put that herbicide in the ground. Yes?
What did you say a biostimulant was?
Food for soil biology. So
Fertilizer?
well, no, it would not be fertilizer. It would be organic material itself.
Like compost?
Sea kelp is a biostimulant. I think of other ones off the top of my head. But there's other organic materials that nematodes live off of, fungi live off of, bacteria live off of, that you will feed and build the soil food web with. I like this one. I'll talk a little bit about fertigation, but it's a fact that fertilizer use for the commercial landscape industry is destroying our oceans, and it's creating dead zones near the coastlines. So one of the solutions that we've found is using fertigation systems, and that is putting a tank in with your fertilizer, or excuse me, a fertilizer tank in with your irrigation system to deliver fertilizer through the sprays or rotors or drip system directly to the plant material. By doing that, you can reduce the quantity of material because it's actually getting to the plant easier. You can reduce the amount of labor significantly, and you can actually pay for the installation of these systems very quickly. It's also an easy way to deliver biostimulants and to switch from synthetic to organic. So what I'm doing now, our company's doing, is going through and proposing this to all of our customers and trying to get them to switch over so we can start using, rather than the organic-based fertilizer, granular fertilizer we use, we can now use fish emulsion, which is 100% organic. And we can add a biostimulant at the same time. We can reduce the costs associated with fertilization, and then we can have this benefit to the environment. So who's familiar with the soil food web? Anyone? I hated fertilizers. I got a D in fertilizers, just so you know. I didn't want anything to do with soil when I was in college, and D for done. And, yeah, I was into landscape construction. Well, I take that back. I was into rugby and partying. But other than that, I was into landscape construction. And it didn't have anything, to me, it didn't have anything to do with fertilization or maintenance or pesticides or anything. So I really put no value on organic chemistry, biology, fertilizers, soils, anything like that. I've come to regret that now, understanding how important that is to what we do, and that it's a dynamic situation that you have to understand the system of, not understand, well, I just do this and it solves the problem. So I encourage you all to look more into this. I would say one of the changes you're seeing in the industry is going from a typical spec of naturalized sawdust and fertilizer to testing for the soil food web and the soil biology, and then replenishing the soil biology through a landscape renovation process. And on the right, this is the #1 tool for any landscaper, a soil probe. So know what's in your, what type of soil you have, and how much water you have in your landscape. So I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip that one, and we'll go to collaboration. So an important part for me in working with my customers and in working with, I'll start with my customers, because to me these are all customers. We have landscape architects and designers we work with, we have the customer and the owner, and we have contractors, us or general contractors. Because sometimes we're sub, sometimes we're the prime. So we have up to what I would call 3 customers on any job. And they don't always agree with what they want to do, which is one of the biggest challenges we have. So who do you think is the most important in that relationship of owner, landscape architect, and general contractor? Does anybody want to guess?
Customer.
Customer? Anyone else? Why the customer?
Because they're the client.
They're paying for it, right?
No, it's not money, you're providing a service to them, and so are you and the architect?
Yeah. The architect is as well, yeah. So to me, it depends on the project, it depends on the owner and the architect, but the most important person to me on any job, not knowing those details, is the landscape architect. The owner's paying for it and they need to be happy. But ultimately, the owners come and go. And not a lot of business comes from owners that do more work. Most of it comes from the relationship I have with a landscape architect or a general contractor. And it's much more important for me when I'm put in the situation of choosing, and I often have to do this, who's right, the architect or the owner, and how to deal with the scenario, to choose the landscape architect, because it's going to be the same architect on the next job, and it's going to be a different owner down the road. It's not to say you don't have to please them, but it's a balance, I would say. And in collaboration, you've got to please everybody. So, you know, it's the customer's role to pay for the project. Ultimately, they need to be happy with the product. The landscape architect has the design vision, and it's important as a contractor to respect that role. I'll go on one job that won't have a landscape architect on it, and I am the designer. They're doing maybe a small renovation that doesn't have an architect, and I'm doing design work. You have to remember when I move to the next job that does have an architect that that's not my role anymore, and that if a question comes up, I'm not solving that problem. I'm putting that back to the architect and respecting their role in the project. And as a contractor, I go back to my graphic originally of balancing cost or budget, craftsmanship, and schedule on a project, and that's the role I take. So a few more minutes for questions.
Any questions for Aaron?
I could have talked longer.
How long does the sheet mulching typically take?
Relative to what?
Take to install, take to,
For this stuff below it to break down?
Oh, good question. So the Drake's Landing project, what sold me on sheet mulching was the Drake's Landing project, where we laid down cardboard, 3 inches of compost, and then we hydroseeded on top of that. And before we did that project, it was typical hard turf. You could touch it like this, and your hand might sink in 1 inch at the most, just through the thatch layer of the turf. 6 months after that was sheet mulch, and the wildflowers were up, and I went out there, and you were able to put your hand into the soil that deep just by pushing down through. So it obviously went right through the 3 inches of compost and whatever minimal thatch layer was developed from that planting, and the cardboard. Cardboard was gone, you couldn't even find it. And what was amazing to me was the soil biology that totally changed by putting that organic compost on there. It affected all of that other soil, which allowed you to push your hand another 3 inches into the soil. It started to naturally aerate that soil and bring the soil to life so that it was healthier. And it was just amazing to me because traditional method would have been you have to rip 8 inches deep to get the soil aerified, and this just did it naturally. So I don't know how long it takes. I know it takes less than 6 months.
Yeah. So it's a great way to do it because the seeds stay on top. You're
Well, it
covering.
depends on what you're planting.
Right, like your wildflower thing. And then the root system starts
just goes right
breaking
through
the cardboard, and then it actually ends up composting, and it's a nice way. And it helps with erosion too, doesn't it?
I don't know about
The cardboard.
erosion itself. No, I wouldn't say it's an erosion control method because there's times where I've done this on hillsides and we actually have to use jute netting or some other method.
Right, I meant flat.
Yeah.
Prevent runoff.
Well, yeah, because you're grading it in such a way that you prevent runoff anyway because
Right.
you're adding so much material on top.
Right.
Do you only use this for turf, or could you use it for, say, a brown field that has weeds and stuff?
You can use it on that. The whole idea is that you're, through the lack of sunlight, you're killing off the plant material. Somewhat lack of oxygen, but we're actually using cardboard that's corrugated, so it provides some oxygen. You can't have an oxygen-free, or I should say air, they're not living in oxygen, air-free environment, or you would kill the soil biology, right?
But you don't have to worry about the seed bank, the existing seed bank that you're covering?
It's actually better that way. If you don't mind fielding this
No.
way, if you go into a brown field and you till, you're going to stir up all the seeds that are dormant underneath. If you sheet mulch it, they stay down there and they don't come up.
Too deep.
Yeah, it's too deep, and they're undisturbed. They need to have some light to germinate, so if
Yeah.
they're down underneath, they're way better off sheet mulching.
Yeah.
And all you need to do is like weed whack down so you can like
Yeah.
machine.
They often do it on top of blackberry, and you can do 2 or 3 layers of cardboard to kill
On
blackberry.
top of blackberry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it will actually kill blackberry by
that
sheet
way?
mulching it, yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, we have to terminate here, end here, because there's another class coming in. Some of you, first of all, let's thank Aaron. I always like having Cagwin or Dorward folks come out because they're way ahead of most of the other contractor types, the way they think, the way they do things. Some of you came in a little late. There's some handouts up here in the front. For all of you, there's copies of Aaron's presentation up here. Also, as you all know, the presentation will be put online. I'll hopefully have that up here by Monday.
It's already on SlideMove if you want to download it on SlideMove. There's only 5 copies of the presentation, so.
But the other handouts are all up here for you. Okay.
Feel
Thank
free
you.
to take this as well.